In this screencast, we'll be covering the gonadotropins. In this screencast, we'll be covering the gonadotropins, follicle-stimulating hormone, and luteinizing hormone. Our final tropic hormones produced by the anterior pituitary gland are follicle-stimulating hormone, or FSH, and luteinizing hormone, or LH. Collectively, these hormones are called the gonadotropins because they are tropic hormones that target the gonads, the testes of males, and the ovaries of females. And of course, these gonadotropins released by the anterior pituitary gland are going to be released in response to hormones from the hypothalamus. So the hypothalamus releases gonadotropin releasing hormone, and that causes the secretion of both FSH and LH. And then those hormones target the gonads, causing specific effects. The gonadotropins, FSH and LH, are extremely important. They are absolutely essential for the growth and maturation of the gonads in juveniles. And they are essential for maintaining the normal functions of the gonads in adults. In juveniles, hyposecretion can result in failure to reach sexually maturity, and even in adults, after reaching sexual maturity, if gonadotropin levels aren't adequate, there can be loss of function and potentially atrophy or decrease in size of the reproductive organs in adults. Let's talk about follicle stimulating hormone first, and specifically let's talk about its effect in females, because this is where it gets its name. So follicle stimulating hormone is released by the anterior pituitary gland in response to gonadotropin releasing hormone, and it targets the ovarian follicle. So what you're looking at here is an ovary, and you're looking at the development of a follicle prior to ovulation, where the follicle ruptures. You could think of the process of follicular development similar to the ripening of a fruit before it falls from the tree. In fact, sometimes they refer to the development of a follicle as the ripening of a follicle. This process that precedes ovulation is stimulated by follicle stimulating hormone. That's where it gets its name. So that as follicle stimulating hormone levels rise in the blood, they stimulate the development of this follicle. As that follicle develops and gets larger and more developed, it produces estrogen. So follicle stimulating hormone, by stimulating the development of the follicle, also causes the production of estrogen by the ovaries. Or I should say it increases the production of estrogen by the ovaries. In males, follicle stimulating hormone stimulates the production of sperm development in the testes. So there was a point in time when men were boys and they did not produce sperm. And then they reached sexual maturity and boom, one day the testes started producing sperm. That was due to follicle stimulating hormone. So prior to puberty, let us say, you have in the testes these what are called daughter A stem cells. And daughter A stem cells just give rise to more daughter A stem cells. That's it. Then sexual maturity is hit, or let's say puberty is hit, and follicle stimulating hormone levels rise in the blood and they target the testes. Follicle stimulating hormone targets specifically these daughter A cells, and it causes daughter A cells to become daughter B cells. And then those cells go through a process that leads to the production of spermatozoa, or simply sperm cells. Without follicle stimulating hormone, B cells are never produced and spermatozoa are never produced. So this is how follicle stimulating hormone causes the production of sperm cells. Now let's talk about luteinizing hormone. Luteinizing hormone triggers ovulation, or the rupturing of this follicle. So we said that follicle stimulating hormone was responsible for the ripening process, right? So it sort of causes that apple to get bigger and bigger and bigger and turn from green to red. What actually causes that apple to fall from the tree is luteinizing hormone. And using our analogy, the falling from the tree is the rupturing of this follicle leading to ovulation. Where does luteinizing hormone get its name? Well, what's left over from that ruptured follicle is called the corpus luteum. And that corpus luteum has a very important function. It produces progesterone and some estrogen. What that progesterone does, and this is not something you have to know, but I thought I would include it so I can tell a full story, is it maintains the endometrium lining of the uterus, so that if this oocyte becomes fertilized, it has a place to implant for the growing of an embryo. So that luteinizing hormone causes and the production of progesterone and, to a certain extent, estrogen. What about luteinizing hormone in males? Well, they target certain cells of the testes, which are responsible for the production of testosterone. So luteinizing hormone stimulates the production of testosterone by the testes in males. Included in your hormones and their properties tables are the sex hormones testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone. You do not have to know the properties of these three hormones. I will not be covering them, and you can ignore them for the most part. You'll be covering these hormones in detail when you cover the reproductive system in AMP2. So in summary, we discussed follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. Make sure that you know the properties of these two hormones per your hormones and their properties table.